Hello Home Slices, it's Kiara with Home Slice Adulting coming to you with my review for Real Housewives of Atlanta season 10 episode number 10. Y'all, it looks like things are going to get a little bit more interesting as the next few episodes approach, but let's talk about the episode that came on yesterday. So first we get started with Porsha and her, grandfather's charity, Hosea Helps the Hungry or something along those lines, is helping out Hurricane Harvey victims. Some of you may know I am originally from Houston, Texas, and so the thing about Harvey really hits home for me. Fortunately enough for my family, a lot of my family lives on the outskirts of Houston, so no one was really impacted except for like one lost car, but thank God that everybody was safe. But there were a lot of people who were very affected by it, and our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to people who are still suffering the effects of Harvey even today, even though months have passed. So I totally get it, and I'm totally happy that Porsha and Cynthia were all able to get some things together to help donate, to feed people. It was a wonderful thing. And again, I like when the ladies do these community type centered events because it takes the focus off of cattiness for just a little bit. But moving on, we see that last week during the little energy reading session, Porsha invited the rest of the girls, and because it was Porsha and because people are still wary of Porsha because of her behavior on last season, nobody really wanted to be there to support her. It was a very awkward moment when she asked all the girls. Porsha was hoping that they would put all their differences aside, but apparently that's just not enough. Okay. So I feel like it was weird. I felt bad for Porsha that she didn't really get the support of the other girls. And it's kind of like, what can you expect? But on the other hand, you're like, it's for a good cause. So I'm kind of ambivalent about it. But moving on, Shamia, still trying to be a good friend to Porsha, must have, her best friend spidey senses must have been tingling and saying that Porsha needed somebody to support her, especially since the other girls from the show weren't coming. And Shamia called and was like, anything you need, and Shamia ended up showing up. And I thought it was wonderful how Shamia was being the bigger person, since Porsha typically is not the bigger person. But moving on, we see Cynthia and Candy. They're supposed to be having dinner with Kenya, and Kenya pulls a Nene and she was like, y'all didn't get the memo? I'm not coming. And so Cynthia says, ever since Miss Daly, referring to Kenya, has gotten married, she's been, missing in action. And she's like, husbands don't replace girlfriends. And I'm like, unless your husband is Peter, Thomas. But moving on. They talk a little bit about the elephant room, and they talk about how if anybody except Porsha would have brought up going to Houston to help Harvey victims, then the ladies would have jumped on it. But because nobody is really feeling Porsha right now, that, they weren't interested. And that really bothers me. I just felt like the greater good should have been on people's minds, especially if they could come together for, the PSA or whatever. But who knows? It probably would have been some mess anyway, had everybody showed up. But anyways, Cynthia has an event, and she says she's going to go to Porsha's event if Porsha goes to her event. We'll talk about that later. And apparently nobody can make it. Sheree says, she has to stay, and she has to stay in Atlanta because she can't fly with her bad back. Okay, I ain't no doctor, so okay. Nobody else really gave a reason, but they just not coming. Okay, so moving on, Sheree and Tyrone, I'm gonna say it again, Sheree dump Tyrone, dump Tyrone, dump Tyrone. They try to have like a little relationship jokes, and Sheree is explaining their relationship jokes, and I'm like, no, who cares? I just, he's in jail. Whatever. Okay, so Sheree is talking on the phone with prison bae Tyrone, and Sheree essentially lies and says, well, Nene has brought up your name multiple times. Now let's go back into our memory banks and think about the only 2 times that Nene has said anything about Tyrone. Now, the first time she said something about Tyrone was when somebody else brought it up when they were in California or San Francisco, wherever they went. And on that trip, somebody asked, well, what do y'all think about Sheree's relationship with Tyrone? And Cynthia and Nene said, well, he's a con artist. So Nene didn't bring his name up. Somebody else brought it up and she just made a comment. And then the second time that Nene had a conversation that involved talking about Tyrone, Sheree brought it up. So Nene is just not bringing up this man's name multiple times, just talking about him. And so I feel like Sheree once again is getting the facts mixed up and is creating drama where there is no drama. Now Tyrone is saying, basically making like little threats like, Nene, you know, had better keep my name out of her mouth kind of thing. She doesn't want me to reveal whatever. And you know what? He didn't have to reveal anything, because we hear from Sheree that Nene was after Tyrone, trying to pursue Tyrone, and Tyrone just wasn't here for the advances. And we don't know if Nene was, you know, separated from Greg or divorced from Greg at the time. And it's like, Tyrone is a master manipulator. He knew he didn't have to say anything over that phone conversation that was being filmed, because Sheree was going to fill in the blanks for us. Sheree, you need to leave him alone, because he's going to get you into some drama on this show, because you have to live in the real world and he gets to just hear about it on the phone while he's chilling in prison with his prison friends. I'm just very over it. But goodbye, Sheree. I don't like her. Moving on. So let's talk about the Texas hurricane relief. So Cynthia and Porsha decided to support each other. I'm glad that somebody was there for Porsha, because at this point I kind of feel sorry for her. But anyways, Cynthia's sister is there, Mallory, and Porsha's sister is there, Lauren. So it's like 2 sets of sisters, you know, doing some stuff for the hurricane relief, which is cool. And so Shamia shows up, which I think is very nice and very wonderful, and a great opportunity for them to patch things up. And so we see Porsha doing an interview at 97.9 The Box, interviewing for her and doing some promotion for the event that she's going to be hosting. So I felt like that was really good. It was good to see, you know, 97.9 The Box, that's the hip hop station in Houston, and it was good to hear the voices of those, you know, people that I used to hear throughout my childhood on 97.9 The Box. But that was nice for me. And Cynthia's doing a benefit concert on Friday. So when they first get there, here's the deal. When they first get there, Porsha and Lauren bring Cynthia and Mallory to a shelter to help pass out, you know, these food and clothes and toiletries to people who need it. Okay, so that's one thing. On Friday, Cynthia is hosting a benefit concert. So at the concert, she gets up on the stage, does a little speech. She does a shout out to Porsha, and she gives Porsha the opportunity to come on the stage and talk about her event that's going on the following day. And it was so funny to me, the shade that was being thrown. I laughed so hard when the cameraman threw the shade. So Porsha gets up on stage and she's like, I'm so happy to be here with my sister Cynthia. And then the camera pans to Lauren. Lauren's your real sister. But then Porsha donates $5,000, and it's very sweet. And Cynthia says she's getting to see a different side of Porsha. And you know, this is the thing that Porsha needs to do. If she wants to stay on the show, she needs to work on chipping away, you know, doing a little chipping away at the bad, negative stuff on one person at a time. So if she can get Cynthia on her side, she just needs to start working on the other people and chipping away those bad impressions that she made last year on the previous season. But anyways, Ernest Pugh and Leela James were there to perform at the benefit concert. I'm not sure who else was there as well. Now next up, Kenya shows up. She surprises Cynthia And she says, you know, I had to move mountains to get here, but whatever. Now, at this point in the show is when Shamea and Porsha are having a conversation. It was really weird. The point of that whole thing was that they made up. Okay, because I felt like the conversation was weird, and this may just be how they fall out and make up, but I felt like neither one of them really got their point across. But at the end of the day, it was like, you know what, none of that matters. Okay, we are going to, you know, squash all of that and move on with our lives. So that was resolved. Now, moving on, Kenya decides that she's going to have an event, even though she had to move mountains to get to Houston at the last minute. She, you know, signs up with Habitat for Humanity to help people in trying to restore their homes. So Porsha can't go because Porsha has her own event, so she sends Shamea in her stead, and also sends Shamea with, you know, like a love offering, you know, a little monetary gift, since Porsha couldn't be there. Now, generally, I feel like people should keep their word. And I feel like Cynthia is so wrong for telling Porsha, you know, when they arrived in Houston, she told Porsha, you know, my event's on Friday and I left Saturday open so that I could support you. And Porsha came to Cynthia's event and everything, and as soon as Kenya shows up, Cynthia drops Porsha like a bad habit and it's like, hey, we'll come if we can make it, but if we get tied up, then, you know, love you, girl. I was like, that is so wrong. I felt bad for Porsha, and I thought it was interesting because a few seasons ago when Nene came back, Cynthia dropped Kenya, and so now when Kenya comes back, she drops Porsha. So yeah, anyways, I felt like Cynthia was very wrong for that. But I guess next we'll talk about the two different type of relief efforts. We'll talk about Kenya's event versus Porsha's event. And so we'll talk about Porsha's first. Everything was going fine until Porsha started running out of food, and she got very upset. And I could kind of understand that because, you know, they had high hopes of feeding everybody. And I mean, when you do a little podcast on the radio or whatever, if you do an interview on the radio and you tell people, hey, come out to my event, but you only prepare to have 400 people eat, I don't know what they were expecting, but they ended up feeding almost 2,000 people. They were able to get some more food there and everything, so everything turned out fine. I felt like more people should have been there to support Porsha, and I'm typically not here for Porsha, and I understand everything Porsha has done, but at some point the scales need to be tipped in some way. Either they need to get rid of Porsha, or like the girls need to, if you're not Candy, you know, just get over it. The girl made a mistake or whatever. But moving on, the thing with Porsha's event went pretty well, except for the food mishap, and that was all that went wrong. But then we got Kenya, who's being mean. Look, I don't care what anybody says. Kenya was in rare form. She, I don't know what it was about her. I think she was just very intently focused on helping people out. She was like, well, no water breaks and no taking pictures, and very, you know, very, had a very much of a takeover spirit, and, you know, was delegating and directing people. And when Shamea called and asked where the house was, she told Shamea, basically blew Shamea off and was like, you know, ask the volunteers. And when Shamea got there, when they were having a little water break, she was dismissive of her as well. And when Shamea was telling her why she showed up and that Porsha would give, you know, a monetary gift, Kenya was like, we'll do that later. Something about Kenya was just off. She was in rare form. I didn't like it, and I felt that she came off as being very rude, and that she came off as being very nasty and dismissive. And I agree with Shamea regarding Kenya's behavior. And I was like, Cynthia was mad that they couldn't even get a water break. And I was like, Cynthia, that's what you get for not showing up to Porsha's event when you told her that you would show up to her event in the event that she showed up at your event. Okay, so that's what you get. You don't get a water break when you violate your word regarding what you told somebody that you would do. Okay? Now, let's talk about Candy real quick. So Candy is at home, and this is what she's doing instead of helping the hurricane relief. But she said she did donate some money, you know, so, you know, good for her. She feels like she's done her duty. And $20,000, yeah, girl. So Riley starts driving. Riley is driving in the middle of the street talking about, I've never heard a rule about about driving on the right side of the road in the neighborhood. If it's the neighborhood, I can drive in the middle of the street. Let me tell you something, Riley. No, okay? If it's a street, you drive on the right side, okay? It doesn't matter if the street is in your neighborhood or on a major highway, okay? What I will say is that my boyfriend does the same thing, and I have to consistently tell him, just because we're up the street from the house doesn't mean that you can drive in the middle of the road. Get on the right side and act like you got some sense, okay? Anyways, moving on, Candy was saying that Riley has made it clear that once she turns 18 that she's gonna be moving out, and Candy is like, well, I guess Riley gonna have to get a job to support herself. And I'm like, Candy, does Riley work at OLG? See, because last week, no, the week before that, when the old lady gang, the actual old ladies of the old lady gang came in and started demanding that things be changed, Candy was running down a list of family members who worked at OLG, and I don't believe that Riley was one of them. So what I find interesting is that Candy says that Riley needs to get a job so she can move out of the house when she plans to move out of the house. But if Riley does not have a job right now, what makes you think, if you haven't instilled a work ethic into her now, and she's basically just a rich kid, what makes you think that she's gonna get a job when she try to move at your house in 18? So Block called. Apparently he's been getting in touch more with Riley. Riley is still very resistant, and we find out that Block is having another baby. And so Riley isn't really here for it. Apparently Riley's birthday is very close to her father's birthday, and now that he's expecting a new baby, the baby's birthday is going to be close to their birthdays as well. And so Riley is just kind of not here for it. Not as much as she was the first time around on the previous season. She started crying when she got in the house. I had to pause the TV because my little heartstrings were just being pulled in all different directions. And you know, Todd and Candy are trying to figure out what's wrong. And y'all, I know what's wrong because I've been through a similar situation. I'll talk about my experience later. Maybe save it for a different video. But I think I know why Riley was so upset. Because on the phone, Riley's father, Block, was the excitement you could hear in his voice about him having a son, calling him king. The king is here. Pissed Riley off. And I could totally understand that because Riley knows that her father didn't even sign her birth certificate. So for her, it was like a slap in the face to hear that her father is so excited about the birth of this child when it took him 14 years to get in the life of a child that he already had. This is just my opinion of why she was so upset. So I 100% get that. I 100% understand that. But moving on, we see Candy talking to Block. She congratulates Block on the new baby, and again, he's very excited about the new baby. Candy and Block have to be great examples of how, you know, their relationship is supposed to be, so that Riley doesn't have as many reservations as she has about getting to know her father. And Candy wants them to try counseling, so I'm looking forward to being looking in on those little counseling sessions, and Block is here for it. So I think it's a great thing that she proposed, and I think it's great that they're getting along a little bit better. So now we have dinner, and Cynthia is backpedaling, y'all. Cynthia is backpedaling when Lauren brings up about how Cynthia and Mallory did not show up to Porsha's event. And so Mallory and Cynthia brought up an excellent point that they attended the shelter event, which kind of hurts Porsha and Lauren's argument a little bit. But that being said, they did play back where Cynthia said that she would show up on Saturday to support Porsha. But the way I feel about it is that Cynthia and Mallory had to do hard back-breaking labor in exchange for them not keeping their word. So to me, you know, all's fair. But anyways, Cynthia was like, well, since Porsha is on everybody's, you know, crap list, then she should be happy that we came to anything, basically. So Shamea felt like Kenya was very dismissive of her and kind of mean and nasty. Kenya shows up late, doesn't get any food because the kitchen is closed. And they bring up Kenya's attitude. And Kenya starts being real extra. She starts demanding water and then more water. And every time Shamea is trying to express her feelings, she just keeps interrupting her. And y'all, Kenya is in rare form. She really is. I think Kenya is putting 20 on 10 when she says that Shamea was trying to make it seem like Kenya's negative attitude overshadowed how much they helped the people they came there to help. That was not Shamea's issue. I don't think Shamea was trying to make it about herself. I think Shamea was just saying Kenya was being a dick, essentially. And so at that point, Kenya says in her confessional, I'm a married woman now. You know, I used to read people from the window to the wall, but I guess being married stops you from reading people. I don't know what that means. I feel like Kenya has just reached a breaking point to where she's over the show and that she has allowed her husband's feelings of the show to become her own feelings of the show. When this show is the whole reason that you have any type of notoriety these days. Kenya is on her way out. We already knew that. According to Mbele, yeah, she was on her way out. So moving on, Kenya is, you know, walking to the bathroom. She's talking to the producer, basically saying, I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to be here. I don't have to talk to these ladies. The producer's trying to calm her down. Kenya's not really here for it. Well, this is why my husband doesn't want to come around, because every time I try to do something positive, they try to make it out to something negative. Kenya's trashing everybody at the table, calling them stupid. I don't have to answer to anybody at that table. Kenya is having a breakdown. Porsha goes to see about Kenya. Kenya, you know, gives a middle finger to the camera, and she's having such a breakdown in the bathroom that Shamea has to go to the men's room to go to the bathroom. Kenya was even rude to Cynthia, who has been her, you know, day one die hard, you know, sister on the show, and she rolled up the window on her and she's like, you know, this is not a moment. She does not want to be filmed. And it's like, here you go, Cynthia, okay? This is what you get for not showing up to Porsha's event. Kenya's on her way out and good freaking riddance, okay? All right, so let's talk about next time on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Okay, so this review is for episode 10. So episode 11 is when we get to see Eva Marcel. I mean, 11 episodes? Okay, so apparently Eva Marcel is being introduced to the girls through Neely. Okay. Moving on, Kenya is making moves in her married life, and it's looking like she's, you know, headed on, you know, to her the next part of her life of being a wife and not being a real housewife, essentially. Candy's Essence cover, they have a party for that. And Cynthia says that Will has a girlfriend and somehow Eva Marcel is involved. So, yeah, it looks like things are going to get a lot more interesting for us throughout the rest of the season, which we're all kind of excited about. I feel like for the first half of this season, episodes 1 through 10 have been a lot of nothing episodes, a little bit of drama here and there, but I'm under the impression that things are going to get a lot better from here, and hopefully they do. Well, thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out, home slices.